Hello, I'm Caitlin Manfrey, Director of Community Programs and Partnerships for Portland Ovations. Welcome to the pre-performance lecture for Janice Carissa, who will be joining us on Saturday, December 10th, 2022 at 3 p.m. at Hannaford Hall. If you are watching this before that date, tickets are still available at portlandovations.org. I want to take a moment to thank the Jerry and Susan Goldberg Fund of the Maine Community Foundation for their generous support of this program, as well as our media sponsors for the season: Eat Drink Lucky, Portland Radio Group, Maine Magazine, Maine Home and Design, the Portland Phoenix, and the Portland Press Herald. Today's talk comes to us directly from our series curator, George Lopez. George is the Robert Beckwith Artist in Residence and director of the Bowdoin Orchestra at Bowdoin College. He has been a performer and educator for over 25 years, and this is his second season working with us as curator of the Chamber Series pre-performance lectures. George has been playing the piano since he was a child, and his skill and love of performance set the stage for a dynamic career. He is known on several continents for his thoughtful and deeply expressive performances of the standard repertoire, as well as being a champion of new compositions. Alongside his work at Bowdoin, George continues to perform worldwide and has recently formed a piano duo, Duo Mundi, with his fiancée, Gulamina Mahamuti. I can think of no better person to give today's talk, and I am delighted to officially welcome George.
Thank you for that introduction, Caitlin. I'm George Lopez, Beckwith Artist in Residence at Bowdoin College, Director of Orchestras, and the curator for this pre-performance lecture series of the Portland Ovations Classical Chamber Music. I'm speaking to you from Studzinski Hall on the campus of Bowdoin College. I'd also like to thank the whole Portland Ovations Chamber Music Series team, Executive Director Amy Petrin, our audio-visual engineer, Katie Day, who puts these wonderful videos together for online viewing, our program notes writer, Phil Carlson. Be sure to check out his notes online, as well as the audio. The other wonderful pre-performance speakers we have for you this season, as well as our Director of Community Programs and Partnerships, Caitlin Manfrey, who you just heard earlier. The title of today's talk, Beyond the Music, we'll be focusing on the captivating program of our upcoming guest artist, pianist Janice Carissa, who'll be performing on Saturday, December 10th at 3 p.m. right here at Portland's Hannaford Hall. Ms. Carissa's program points to a very important centuries-long debate about what, if anything, music can mean. Can it point beyond itself in a way that's significant to both performer and listener? The debate was made by two central camps during the 19th century: the conservatives and the progressives, the traditionalists versus the futurists. The conservatives were led by Robert Schumann, Mendelssohn, and later Brahms, whose features include the central importance of traditional structures, such as sonata form, in the spirit of absolute music. On the other hand, the progressives, with Liszt and Richard Wagner as the futurist composers, whose music looked to exploring new structures that were freer in form and had a program or narrative aspect to their concept. Overall, Ms. Carissa's whole recital contains piano works that have varying levels of formal structural aspects and, on the other hand, anthropomorphic storytelling qualities which highlight this dichotomy. I've chosen to divide our discussion of the program into two thematic pairings, with the Granados and Jeffsky pieces leaning more heavily toward the programmatic side, inspired by nationalism, politics, and in the Granados, mythology. Where, on the other side, we have the more traditional sonata forms, which Scriabin and Brahms embraced, but which have poetic and emotional content that they added with poetry and personal descriptions in the score. Let's look at the music. As one of the Spanish triumvirates along with composers Albéniz and de Falla at the turn of the 20th century, Enrique Granados took pride in showing the beauty and power of the music of Spain through its unique Moorish scales and colors. We'll also see a version of this in the nationalism of the blues piece by Frederick Rzewski in a moment. This opening melody you just heard of Granados's Maiden and the Nightingale, which opens Miss Carissa's performance, is sorrowful, a lament of the maiden over her lost love. The idea of humans communicating with animals is ancient and gives this piece a haunting, mythical mood where we hear the nightingale's fleeting call only at the very end of the piece. Turning now to the Rzewski Winnsboro Cotton Mill Blues, the late Frederick Rzewski was one of America's foremost protest composers. His most famous work, written in 1975, is an epic one-hour set of piano variations titled "The People United Will Not Be Defeated." It contains 36 variations on the Chilean song of the same name. Here in Cotton Mill Blues, it's based on a protest song of the 1930s with textile workers in Winnsboro, South Carolina, singing about the hardship of factory labor. The original blues tune was popularized by Pete Seeger in his inimitable folky voice. Here's the tune. I got the blues, I got the blues, I got the Winnsboro Cotton Mill Blues. Lordy, spend it hard. You know and I know you don't have to tell. You work 4 tomorrows, you gotta work like hell. I got the blues, I got the blues, I got the Winnsboro Cotton Mill Blues. Rzewski, using extended techniques of playing clusters of keys with the palm and forearm to create the machine-like noise of the cotton mills, he conjures up a whole industrial scene for us as the poor laborer eventually laments his plight of being overworked and underpaid in the crushing age of the machine. The first half of this piece is watching the machine get bigger and bigger, then gradually settling down into the blues tune proper, evolving into a boogie-woogie context. In that same decade of the 1930s, Charlie Chaplin speaks to this very idea where in his famous factory scene from his first talkie, Modern Times, made in 1936, he's literally swallowed up by a huge machine as he moves through its large gears. Now, turning toward the sonatas, which historically represent the more conservative aesthetic of Robert Schumann and his acolytes, Brahms and Mendelssohn, we have music of a more traditional form, yet inspired by ideas outside of purely musical concerns. The sonata form has all the elements of a novel, protagonist and antagonist in the form of opposing characters, usually one that's dramatic or epic, and the other lyrical and tender, which is then developed throughout the main body of the movement. Both Scriabin and Brahms open their third sonatas with a dramatic martial gesture that lets us know the ride will not be smooth. In the Brahms that I just played, you hear the fate motive of Beethoven, a shadow that loomed very large in the 19th century and caused Brahms to wait 40 years before composing his very first symphony. The lyrical themes of these two amazing sonatas are as gorgeous as you'd expect from these two remarkable composers whose improvisational skills were renowned. They lean, of course, heavily toward the lyrical, tender side, opposing the strong, aggressive opening of these sonatas. Here's the Scriabin and Brahms' second themes, respectively. Scriabin's sonata is still in a romantic style, heavily influenced by his love of Chopin. He calls this third sonata early in its composition Gothic, like a ruined castle. But several years later, he gave it a new program called States of the Soul, each movement having its own individual title and description as the soul finds peace and then agony once again. It wouldn't be until after 1903 that Scriabin's language would change to a particular brand of musical symbolism in a rather expressive, if dissonant, voice. Brahms wrote his 5-movement sonata at the tender age of 20. This Opus 5, which Miss Carissa will perform to conclude her program on the 10th, was a calling card by Brahms to his future mentor, Robert Schumann, who cursed him with a prematurely aggrandizing review in a German music journal, calling him the darling of the muses. This put an enormous pressure on Brahms to succeed in the public eye, and as a result, he never released a work he didn't think was ready, destroying many sketches and manuscripts so as not to show his weakness or faulty process. In the sonata, you'll hear the influence and shadow of Beethoven's Fifth, the famous fate motive, da-da-da-dam. Brahms writes a short poem in the second movement from the German poet Inkerman that talks about the rapture of beating hearts. and labels the fourth movement, the intermezzo, Remembrance. And there you have it. I hope you all will thoroughly enjoy Ms. Carissa's program and that this helps draw you even further into this inspiring world of piano music. Hope to see you there.
Thank you so much, George, for that fascinating peek behind next week's program. Again, if you haven't secured your tickets to Janice Carissa, she will be performing Saturday, December 10th at 3 p.m. at USM's Hannaford Hall in Portland. Janice is the star on the rise, and we really hope you'll join us for what promises to be a fantastic program. Be sure to look ahead at the other performances we have coming up in the new year. In February, we'll be welcoming harpist Bridget Kibbe with a new piece exploring cross-cultural musical styles. And we'll be closing out our chamber series with a fabulous collaboration between the Miro Quartet and soprano Karen Slack in March. Please visit portlandovations.org to learn more and get your tickets now. On behalf of George and the whole Ovations team, I would like to thank you again for tuning in to today's lecture. We look forward to seeing you soon.